you a musician interested in improving your performance? Welcome to Notes on Jazz. I'm your host, Keith Davis. If you want to learn more about jazz improvisation, harmony, and composition, or just want to improve your piano skills, this is the place for you. We'll be hosting interviews with fellow musicians, offering tips and techniques on study and practice, and lots of other cool stuff. Whatever instrument you play, or if you're a vocalist, you will find something helpful and interesting here. So come hang out with us at Notes on Jazz. Hi, I'm very pleased to have Tim Armacost as my guest today. Tim is a wonderful saxophonist, composer, just all around wonderful musician, and I was pleased to hear him play. He brought his quintet down to Furman University where I teach a couple of weeks ago, and what a great band and what a great experience to have such a world-class cast of musicians come visit us, in our little town, Greenville. And so hi, Tim, how are you doing today?
I am really, really well. Thank you for that
Good.
kind introduction.
Yeah. It was a real pleasure hearing you guys and getting to meet you, and the master class thing, just getting to hang out a little bit. And so it was a real pleasure and a real inspiration for me too.
Thank you, for us too. It was that was pretty well exactly the midpoint on our tour. We were out for 2 weeks at the end of September, and the band had hit its stride, and everybody was feeling good. And it was a great experience. We had a beautiful time.
It just sounded great, man. I mean, I was familiar with, I'd heard, actually we had Rudy at Furman a few years ago with Dave Pietro Quintet. So I've gotten to hear, Rudy's great. And I had met Jim once briefly. I heard him play in New York briefly one time down in the Village when I was in New York. And but he's great. He's a wonderful player too. I mean, all those guys, Kenny, Joe, of course I'm familiar with Joe. And so, no, that's okay. But anyway, I'm pleased to have you here. So there's a lot of directions we could go here. I like to encourage people to kind of tell their own story here, So, but I'll ask you a few questions, and we'll just see where we go. All right.
Okay, sounds good. If you just give me a push, I'll start talking.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a push, and I'm gonna step back and let you take. I'll just steer the canoe, sort of. But I'd like to hear about your background as a musician first. You can give us how did you get into music, and why jazz, and why the saxophone, and how did you get started?
I think, like many people, I'm from a musical family. Like many people who wind up playing jazz, that is. My mother studied at Juilliard after she finished she's a piano player. She studied at Juilliard after finishing her undergrad, and discovered, we don't have to get too far into the weeds about my mom, but she discovered that her hands were a little bit too small to manage the tenths, that are needed in the left hand for some of that really heavy classical repertoire. And so she continued down the path of becoming a music teacher. So I had piano students studying with my mom in the house from the time, as early as I can remember.
That's great.
It was just a constant presence in the house. And so she's a classical musician, and my dad is not a player. He can play a little bit of piano. We like to joke about how he's the best maraca player in the band, in the family, But so he's not a professional musician, but or even a player. But he's the one who brought everybody in the family's ears to jazz. He was a big fan of Phil Woods and Oscar Peterson and Buddy Rich and Ray Charles. So had quite a wide variety of things were playing in the house. Actually, there's another kind of funny thing about my family, which is I have two brothers, one older, one younger, and my older brother played trumpet. He sort of led us into playing music, my two brothers and I, or myself and my younger brother, that is. And so he would play trumpet. He would be practicing in one room. My little brother would be practicing the alto in another room. I'd be practicing clarinet in the third room. My dad would have jazz on the stereo in a fourth room, and my mom would be teaching piano in the fifth. It was utter chaos.
That's perfect.
And somehow my dad could concentrate through all of that. I don't know how he managed it, but that is kind of the environment I grew up in. And my folks took me. I did a lot of growing up outside of Washington D.C. in the Maryland suburbs, and there's that famous venue called Wolf Trap out there, where they have those
sure.
summer indoor-outdoor concerts. I saw a whole lot of people there, but the one that really had the biggest impact on me when I was little was going to see Benny Goodman when I was 8.
Oh, yeah. Wow.
And I heard him playing the clarinet, and I was like, "Oh, okay, I want to do that."
Yeah.
And it wasn't a realization that I wanted to be a professional musician by any stretch. But I started playing clarinet 6 months later, and that got me rolling on the path.
That's cool. So you had lessons, I'm assuming, as a kid, and the whole
Interestingly, my dad left. My dad got his second posting. He's a diplomat. He got his second posting in Japan as I was turning 9 and 10, or 10 and 11. I can't remember which. In any case, we went over there. I did 4th and 5th grade. So 4th grade is usually when kids have started with lessons at school.
Right.
So we moved to Japan like a few months after I saw Benny Goodman, and that fall I started on clarinet. And Japan became something that was very much a part of my growing up and my education and the whole thing. So it's not, as I look back, it's not at all surprising that I started playing clarinet in Japan. And then a little while later, during those 2 years, I went to the American school in Japan, a school in Tokyo that sort of serves the expat community. And it was a kindergarten through 12th grade school. And the high school had a big band. And I can remember being out at recess playing soccer, in 5th grade, I think it was, and hearing this sound coming from the cafeteria of the high school. And I just dropped what I was doing in the middle of a game, and pickup game. It wasn't an official game, but a recess game. I just dropped everything and ran to that cafeteria and sat down in front of the saxophone section, and I didn't budge. The bell rang for me to go back to class. That was my first time skipping class as a 5th grader. It was all downhill from there, and I just couldn't take my eyes. I can still remember to this day the way those saxophone players looked, sitting in a row of 5, delivering all that incredible music. They were playing some Sammy Nessico arrangements and Thad Jones, all kinds of great stuff. And I can't say that I knew I was going to do that in that moment, but I can certainly say that I was drawn like a moth to a flame. Looking back, it seems clear that was a big moment.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, yeah. And then my older brother Scott, started getting serious, started to learn how to improvise. Very natural ear player. He never really got educated. He didn't go to Berkeley or something like that. He didn't get that kind of a musical education, but he's been performing since we were kids. And my little brother got an alto a little after that and started outblowing me on clarinet. So that prompted the move to tenor. Classic sibling rivalry.
Yeah, right.
And then once I started outblowing him on tenor, he switched from alto to tenor. So now we both play tenor.
Oh, cool.
And he still sounds great. He's sort of modeled himself after Sonny Stitt. He can play the crap out of some bebop.
Nice.
So yeah, that kind of took me through the high school years, and then I went to college out in California and met Charlie Shoemake and Bobby Bradford. Those were my 2 main teachers. Bobby was friends with Ornette Coleman. They grew up together, and Ornette actually called Bobby Bradford to play that famous gig at the 5 Spot.
Yeah.
And Bobby was on the GI Bill at the time, and his professors wouldn't let him out of class to go do this gig, and he had a wife and a kid, so he chose to stay and finish his degree. And Don Cherry got the call, and the rest is history on that one. But for me, that was lucky because he wound up in Southern California from Texas, and my ears were not quite ready to deal with what he was doing. He was a free player, but a super deep melodic inventor.
Mm-hmm.
So I was around him for 3 years while I was at college. I did my junior year in Japan. So 3 out of 4, I was around Bobby and got to just experience. He would play with us. He didn't just sort of run the jazz ensemble. He would actually include himself in whatever we were doing. So,
cool.
So we got to actually, blend horns with him, listen to him improvise on rhythm changes and anything else that was happening. And So I had this really interesting education while I was in college, being around Bobby, who was just an authentic, incredibly articulate, free jazz player. He's still around, actually. He's in his 90s now, and or he might be 89 or 90. And then Charlie Shoemaker on the other side was my other teacher in college, and he's a vibes player, had been out with George Shearing in the late 60s, and he was all about the language of bebop. He had 500 or 1,000 transcriptions, and had a very clear and methodical, doesn't sound like the right word to say, but he had a really clear method for teaching improvisation. And so I had this very kind of intellectual, all about how to fit the chords and scales together approach from one teacher, and this ignore the chords and play entirely free approach from another teacher. And it kind of became my path to seek a way between those two things.
Yeah.
I'm very interested in being able to play properly on giant steps. I'm also very interested in playing free, and finding a way that incorporates the whole spectrum has been a nice path to be walking on for the last 40 years for me.
Yeah, I hear that in your playing. I really do. And that's a comment that I wanted to make about your playing. Is I hear that the adventuresome approach to playing free. I hear it, at the same time it's melodic and lyrical, and that's that's what I strive for myself, actually, and I hear that comes across to me very clearly in your playing. So I really appreciate that. I really resonated with that,
I'm delighted to hear that you heard it that way.
Yeah, beautiful. So, I mean, you're obviously a masterful saxophone player, but what came through for me was that aspect of it, the lyricism,
Yeah, and that especially in the last 20 years, I have. Let me think about this. So what I was going to say was these last 20 years have been, to my mind, an era of really intense searching and innovation in the area of rhythm. And I'm on board. I love playing in odd meter, and I love playing in mixed meter and metric modulation. I love it all. I'm right into it. And at the same time, I think it one of the things that was a consequence of that searching is guys and women, composers, who were writing the new music to improvise over, were focused on the rhythm, and so they created structures where they could innovate in that area. And I kind of felt myself like melody and harmony took a bit of a back seat to the rhythmic innovation. Got no problem with that, because I understand, I get it. You maybe want to simplify some things so you can concentrate on this other thing that you're trying to explore. But I started to feel, maybe in the last 6, 8 years, 10, that maybe it was time for me, in any case in my life, to try to find a way to learn more about what melody is, and learn more about how to play melodies and how to improvise with melody, and have that be something I add into the rhythmic stuff that everybody's exploring, rather than leaving it behind. So that's been a preoccupation of mine, and I do a lot of melodic stuff with my students. That's the first thing we do in every lesson. We spend 15 minutes just exploring freely. And the point is to play melody, and the idea is to play melodies that you've never played before. That's the first thing we do in the first 15 minutes of an hour lesson, or 20. We just play melodies, search for melodies that we've never played before. And I think of that as a way to practice doing the thing that I'm trying to do on the bandstand. It's keep it adventurous, keep it open, keep it adventurous and open, and take risks, and see what happens, and see if you can find your way out. If you hit a wall, see if you can find a way to bounce off it, and find something that makes sense. So I practiced it. I practiced that stuff.
Yeah, that's great. That's insightful and inspiring for me. I'm a teacher too, obviously, and I'm gonna adopt that. We do some of this, but I'm gonna incorporate that. I'm gonna steal that from you, or borrow it, or whatever you want to say. I think that's good.
I'll do a quick plug. You and your listeners can learn more about that in my book.
I was going to get to that, talking to you about your book, because I think your book sounds like much more than a saxophone book, and I can't wait to get my own copy of it and look at it.
That's the main criticism I've received about the book, is that it was maybe a mistake to call it the jazz saxophone book. Well, the idea behind that was as a kind of a partner book to Mark Levine's book, the jazz piano book. Chuck Scher and I created this book, the jazz saxophone book, together, and that was certainly my goal, was certainly to have it be a book that's as useful as Mark Levine's book has been to me. I'm not a piano player, but his piano book was very useful to me, and the way he put it together, referring to the tradition and with examples that illustrated what he was talking about from Blue Note in the 60s, for example, just all these very clear references to the tradition, which made the book feel alive rather than like an archive where historical things live, not that. It's a reference source to the music that's active and alive. I thought he did an amazing job with that. So I set out with the intention of trying to create a book that was aimed at saxophone players, but would be useful to everyone, and maybe would give. I tried to share some of my knowledge of what I know about playing with a rhythm section to saxophonists, and then my hope was that the rhythm section players whose hands this book falls into can also learn something about how saxophone players think and what they're looking for from the rhythm section, and I tried to generate some conversation in various chapters of the book.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to. I'm going to get a copy, because I've said that to you that day at that master class. I was looking forward to it. I'm going to get a copy for myself, because I'm very interested.
Yeah, nice.
In fact, I noticed that I was looking through your discography, and I noticed that David Berkman is on some of your recordings with the New York Standards Quartet. Yeah. He's one of the first people I interviewed for this podcast.
Oh, is that so?
Yeah, and his books
always proud to be in a group with David Berkman.
Man, he's an amazing musician, and he's obviously a great teacher. I had a long 2-hour conversation with him like this. Apart from the podcast, we had a long 2-hour conversation about all these things too. And I use one of his books as a harmony book with my students.
So David and I teach together at Queens College.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, yeah.
And I've audited his harmony class twice.
Yeah,
I just go in every now and again, and I watch I watch along for the first 3 quarters of the class. I don't do the final project or anything like that, but I just go in and see what things I could use to have a second look at. Most of what he's talking about, I've read his book. I understand it. I've internalized most of it.
Sure. But
it never hurts to go and get yourself reminded of somebody else's perspective on it.
Absolutely.
And I've gotten a lot of benefit from that.
Yeah,
another little David Berkman story is a little while ago we were on tour in Japan together, and we had a day off in Kobe, and he said, I might have had 2 days off, and he said, man, we got a couple of days off. I don't know what I'm going to do with myself. Why don't we give each other a lesson? I said, that's a really interesting idea. So he gave me a piano lesson, which in my case, I knew I could find the chords on the piano, but I had never really worked on being able to play piano in time. And he got me started just doing 1 and 7 in my left hand and 3 in my right hand. Very simple voicings and moving them around. And it really made a big difference to start being able to do that. So that's the lesson he gave me, and I gave him the lesson about playing a fifth at the bottom of the piano and letting it sustain, and then playing melodies, doing the thing I was just talking to you about, where we just free associate melodically and see if we can find something that we've never played before. And I thought I got the better end of that deal, but he says he feels like he got a good lesson out of it too.
I think I want to get in on this deal with you too. We're going to talk about that after this interview today, because I definitely want to have some ongoing conversations with you, because like I said, your music resonated with me quite a bit, and And so I look forward to some ongoing conversations. So
likewise.
Yeah. So anything else you want to say about the book, the writing of it, or the conception of it, or any feedback you've gotten about it from people?
I think I gave you a pretty good synopsis of what it's about and what it's for. It's meant to be, in addition to, so yeah, one thing that's worth saying about it is that I went to Chuck Scher at the Gen conference in New Orleans, must be 5 years ago now, 4 or 5, and I went with the idea of pitching a book about melody, because I've been thinking about melody for 6 or 8 years, and I started to feel like I had some things to contribute. And so I went to him and we started talking, and he was like, yeah, I think you should write a book for me. And I said, yeah, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm standing in front of you. I'd like to do that. And I have this idea to write a book about melody, because I feel like that's a subject that could use some explanation. And he said, that's a nice idea. Why don't you consider doing that as a chapter in a larger book? And I was like, oh, I hadn't thought about a project on that scale. Let me sleep on it. And so I left. We had met a few times, so we knew each other to talk, And so I went to bed that night, and I woke up the next morning, and I had the idea. I had the structure for the book. It came to me in my sleep, and that was to follow the structure of a song. So if you're a saxophone player, you need to know how to count the tune off. You need to know how to get it going. So I talk about how to actually count the tune off. Find the time in your body before you ever articulate to the band what the time is. So you don't go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's like error number 1. You get the tune off to a bad start, you're recovering for half the tune, right?
Exactly.
So from that to what I prefer to do, which is to play some music or ask somebody in the band to play some music to get it started. So rather than counting it off, we're playing it in. So I talk about that, and then how to play the melody, how to play the solo, how to play your own solo, and of course that then gets into harmony and all of that very involved stuff that you have to know. Trading fours, how to play the melody out, how to initiate going into a 3-6-2-5 turnaround after you've played the head out. How to play the ending. That became the structure of the book, and it is meant to be very practical. Like here's something from Sonny Stitt. Listen to this. See how he ends the song, and then I explain what he does, and then go try that. Go to a piano player's house and see if you can make that happen. And those sort of practical on the bandstand skills were things that I thought could use some explanation. So in addition to having the theory and the stuff you would expect from a jazz saxophone book, it's also meant to be a really practical guide. And like I was saying earlier, if you're a piano player, it doesn't hurt to see. You may or may not already know how to initiate a 3-6-2-5 turnaround at the end of a song, right? But to see it explained and to see how saxophone players do it might be useful, and it also might help you to teach it to somebody. Absolutely. So that all those things came into play. And so I went to Chuck the next day. I said, hey Chuck, I thought of this idea of following the structure of a song and making the chapters follow that order. And he was like, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. Why don't you outline that and send me the outline and we'll discuss it. So he was very much involved in pushing me towards this structure. And when I found something I thought I could work with, Chuck was also incredibly helpful when I got lost in the weeds. When I was too far down something about the harmonic minor scale, he was like, maybe you need to take this out and put it into a chapter later on about advanced harmony, for example. That was one of the things that happened, and that helped me to keep that flow of playing all the way through a song. And I did do that. I took out some of the more sort of advanced harmonic ideas and put them later after I'd finished the main body of the book. So that it was a great experience doing that with Chuck, having him be the sort of big picture eyes and ears on what I was writing. And that all happened during the lockdown. So that was a silver lining of that very difficult time, where I'm sure, like you, I had 2 years of live work just disappear.
Yeah, I know. Yeah,
I was
absolutely.
lucky to have some teaching, so we could kind of stay in our house. It wasn't a total disaster. But
Right.
anyway, I had all this free time,
Yeah.
and so I thought, okay, time to sit down and start thinking about behaving like an author. I'd
Yeah.
always kind of
Right.
thought that was, whenever you hear stories about novelists who sit down at their desk every morning and write for 2 hours or 3
Yeah.
hours, I always thought, wow, that takes a lot of discipline. I wonder
Yeah.
if I'd be able to do that.
Right.
And I could.
Yeah.
It was. I mean, of course, I had the freedom to because of that horrible global
Right.
pandemic.
Sure.
It always feels a little bit weird talking about it like that because people were dying.
Sure.
And I lost some friends. It was tragic. And in the middle of that, I was able to sit down at my desk, and there were no other demands on my time except for some teaching.
Mm-hmm.
So it gave me an opening to sit down and do that steadily day after day. And it took me pretty much the whole 2 years.
Wow. Yeah.
To get everything that I've ever learned down on a piece
of paper. That's great. I got a bass player friend in Atlanta. He's, somebody I've known since I started playing with him when I was 19 or 20, He always says, I can tell you everything I know in 5 minutes.
Nice. Yeah.
Well, during that time, I made a video course, beginning harmony for piano
did you?
players, video course, So I learned, I used that time to do some of that kind of stuff myself,
All right. Is it sort of up somewhere where I could access it?
Yeah, I can. I'm working on. I'm sort of redoing some of it. I'm adding some material to it to make it more, I think, more useful, more helpful. But I'll share a little bit of it with you if you're. It's very basic. It's just like 1-4-5 triad harmony for piano players.
Yeah, great.
A good start.
That's a good place for me to go. Just to, as I was saying, just to take my in-time piano playing to the next stage. That would.
I'll share some of it with you if you're interested. Maybe you could give me some feedback. Tell me what you think. But anyway, I'm definitely looking forward to the book. I'm definitely going to get a copy of that.
Nice. Yeah.
And I just downloaded the CD and the band. I went to Bandcamp and got your newest recording. I tried to do it, but every time I thought to do it, I was in the car and I was trying to do it on my phone. It wouldn't let me do it on my phone. So
what a world, huh?
Yeah, I know. What a world. Yeah, what a life. But so anyway, let's tell me some more stuff. Tell me some good stuff. Who are your saxophone influences? Tell me a little bit about that, maybe. Like who inspired you?
So Benny Goodman got me started on clarinet, and then I was growing up outside of Washington D.C. in the Maryland suburbs, as I said,
so you got to hear
Blues Alley.
Yeah,
Blues Alley. There were a number of clubs. Blues Alley was the club where the jazz stars would come through, and that was kind of before the Blue Note era. The club, the Blue Note,
right?
Where it was really about stardom and celebrity rather than the keepers of the flame or the current jazz stars. So anyway, Blues Alley at that time just had an incredible roster of people, and they would come down to New York and play Tuesday to Sunday. I mean, that era was, it was weird because it was the end of the 70s, which is also considered sort of a not golden age for straight ahead jazz. But anyway, there were people like Freddie Hubbard and Cedar Walton and Art Blakey and Elvin Jones and Stan Getz. All these guys were playing. They maybe took some forays into the fusion thing, but they basically kept the flame burning. And I got to see a whole bunch of those guys at Blues Alley.
That's cool.
So Dexter Gordon and Stan Getz were the first two saxophonists leading quartets that I got to hear live. And I didn't know much of what was happening yet. I didn't have much knowledge, but I could see that what they were doing was incredibly attractive and was inspired by them.
Yeah.
And then after graduating from high school, as I started studying with Charlie, my first lesson with him was really interesting. He said, I talk about this in the book too. He said, okay, Tim, so, I just walked in the door basically. And he said, okay, Tim, so what do you play over an E minor 7 flat 5 chord? And I'm like, no idea, Charlie. That's where I need to start. And he was really cool. He wasn't judgmental. He was just like, okay, I see what we need to do. And he started me on the major scales, got me learning the modes of the major scales.
Right.
And he didn't call them modes either. He didn't ask me to learn 7 modes and have the different,
Right.
all of the, if you're talking about Dorian and Mixolydian and Ion, that's all there. It's all the C major scale.
Right,
it's just
exactly,
the C
right.
major scale starting on D if it's the Dorian mode,
Sure.
And so I was kind of lucky that he didn't ask me right from the beginning to learn the C major scale as if it was 7 different scales. He just said, this is the C major scale, and here's how you use it on a D minor chord, and here's how you use it on a G minor, G7 chord. And so I got this really, really concise explanation of harmony from Charlie. And then the second thing, so that went on for, half a year as we worked through the scale. But the other thing he did in that first lesson was he said, what do you want? Why are you here? He's such a good teacher. Right. And I said, well, what I want is to learn how to play long flowing lines through the changes. Right. And I'd been improvising. I was the first tenor player in my high school big band, so I'd been getting some solos, but I didn't really know what to do beyond playing by ear. And I had explored the structures of the chords a little bit. I could probably tell you at that point that C7 was C, E, G, and B flat, but beyond that, I didn't really know what to do. I could play some little melodies, and I could maybe land on one of those chord notes, But I didn't really understand that there was a scale that went with that, or that it was coming from a scale. And so he got me started with that. So I said, I'd like to learn how to play long flowing lines. And his answer to that was, oh, okay, you mean like this? And we were using LPs at that time. So he put the needle down on an LP, and it was Sonny Rollins playing Mambo Bounce from the record he did with the Modern Jazz Quartet. And I was like, yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to hear in my head. I don't know how to get to that. And I had probably heard of Sonny Rollins, but I hadn't seen him live and didn't really know much about him yet. I was 16, 17, maybe 17, 18, maybe 18. And so that was it. Sonny Rollins became the guy for me. And studying with Charlie, I also got exposed to Hank Mobley. I did some solos of Dexter Gordon. Harold Land was a big influence at that time. And then the other thing that was really cool about studying with Charlie is that he was a vibes player. All he cared about when he did transcriptions was good vocabulary. So he had me working on Charlie Parker transcriptions, Freddie Hubbard, Tom Harrell, Phil Woods, Bud Powell. It didn't matter what the instrument was, just that he played a solo that was great from start to finish. So he had this really cool thing where he would have us learn a solo once a week. And then what he would do is you go into the lesson, and he would comp on piano. He's a vibes player, but he would comp on piano. And you would play the head and then the solo that you learned. And then he would continue to comp so that you could feel the difference between what it felt like to play a perfect solo as imagined by Hank Mobley, followed by your sort of lame attempt at improvisation. And every week you could feel the difference. And with luck, as your vocabulary started to increase, you started to get that feeling like, oh, it doesn't feel so bad, that difference now. I'm starting to be able to do this a little bit. It was a very, very effective way of teaching, and it was all about the music. It wasn't about it was about learning to put into practice the language that you were learning and understanding what the grammatical underpinnings were. So it was a very effective way of teaching. And
did you transcribe all those solos yourself, or did he have some that he provided you with? Or
yeah, he had written them all down, and he would give us a copy. And what I do when I share this with my students now is I tell them to learn it by ear and just use the transcription to confirm what you heard.
Gotcha.
But not to learn it by reading, because I think it makes more sense to engage your ears when you're learning something rather than your eyes. Although I don't think it's negative, as I hear myself say that, I don't think it's a negative thing if you're listening while you read the solo, that you're doing both of those things together. That's not necessarily a problem, as long as the oral element is there. If you're just reading it off the page without hearing it first, I don't think that's worth anything. Maybe it makes you a better sight reader, but not much beyond that.
But you don't hear the inflections and the phrasing. You don't really hear if you don't hear the music being played, you don't hear the subtleties of it.
And most importantly, the feeling of the time.
The feeling of the time, exactly. Like the swing feel or whatever. Exactly.
Yeah. So that was a great thing. And the other thing that Charlie would do, the way he would be an old school kind of teacher was, if you weren't making it, he'd just stop. So if you played Hank Mobley solo on The Best Things in Life for free, and then I took a chorus, if I wasn't really happening, he'd play a retard, he'd take you out. If you weren't happening, he'd take you out. And then if you were happening, he'd give you 3 or 4 choruses, and then he'd modulate and take you into another key and see if you could figure out how to play that tune in another key right now. And boy, he's still around. I'm actually after we finish today, I've got one of my first emails to send today is a confirmation that I can do a gig that we talked about doing together on the 14th of January down in where he lives in Cambria, California.
Beautiful.
So I've been doing that now with him. When I was studying with him, I was in college, and the guys who were 5, 6, 8 years older than me were playing gigs with him in Los Angeles, and my buddies and I would go to those gigs and just we were just in awe of those guys who had studied with him, and now they were doing the gig. So that was a real arrival. But my favorite was Pete Chrisley was my sort of main saxophone hero in college, and still to this day. One of my main ones, because he's an LA guy and has his own sound and his own approach and the whole thing. And so one of the sort of real high points of my career was Charlie inviting me to come and play a gig in Cambria with him and Pete Chrisley, 2 tenors. Wow. And man, I was just in heaven that day. And I've been doing it long enough that I wasn't totally scared,
That's great.
And Pete was like, "Yeah, kid, sounds good."
That's great, man. That's great.
It was a happy day.
Yeah, I got a Pete Chrisley album. I mean, this was vinyl. I must have been in my late teens, man. In fact, I think it was him and Warren Marsh. Am I right about that?
You're talking about Apogee. That's an absolutely brilliant record.
Man, I haven't listened to that for years. I should get that out again, man.
Man, you'll find it just as breathtaking, or even more now if you haven't heard it for a while.
Yeah, I haven't heard it for years.
Was very forward looking, and I know when I first heard that record, I wasn't ready for everything they were doing. And now, of course, with Mark Turner sort of bringing Warren back into the conversation, it's even more relevant now because they're playing some of that Tristano music. And oh man, what a great record!
Yeah, I'm gonna look that up. Yeah, I'm gonna look it up and listen to it again.
Yeah,
not to mention your great discography, which leads me to another question for you. I mean, I ask everybody this: what are your favorite recordings of yourself playing that you like to recommend to people? Like if I asked you, tell me 2 or 3 of your favorite records that you like that you would want people to hear.
Oh, interesting. Nobody's ever asked me that before.
Oh, good.
So the last 2 as a leader, the most recent one that was released in February of this year, 2023, is called The Inevitable Note. That's the band that you heard that just traveled to promote the release.
The amazing band that I just heard.
That I think that's the recording that I've done as a leader that's the most what should I say about that? It feels like it's the most complete. Many artists will tell you that they played on this record and they like this tune, but they're not so happy about the performance on that tune, or something happened on that one. This is the first record I have where I have no reservations at all. I'm like, yeah, listen to that whole record. I love everything on that record.
That's beautiful to hear, man. I'm happy to hear that, man. Yeah.
Oh my God, I'm happy to say it.
Beautiful.
I've never had such an unequivocal feeling about a recording. Yeah. I feel like everybody just put their heart and soul into it, and there's a lot of joy in that recording because it was all of our first time back in the studio after the lockdown, So there's a lot of happiness in it and passion, and it's just wonderful. And the other thing about the new recording is that I wrote the music using the Ellingtonian idea of imagining the people who were going to play the music and writing it for them.
Yeah, I remember hearing you say that during the concert, and that's beautiful. That's beautiful. Yeah, yeah.
Boy, what a thing! I've also never set out to create a recording from start to finish. I've always just kind of collected tunes that I wanted to play. Oh, that's a great tune. I'm going to record that one. When I had enough on a list, I would record them. And this is the first one where I set out to write a bunch of original music and arrange a couple of standards and do that with the whole record in mind. And I just feel like that I'm going to definitely do that again. I'll do the other thing again too, where I just play a bunch of tunes, blowing session. That's a nice way to do it also. But I really feel like the connection to the musicians was really deep as a result of that. And anyway, so that's the new one is the one that I feel most happy about. The one before it is called Time Being, with Jeff Watts, Bob, oh God, can you believe it? I blanked his name.
Dave Kukoski.
Dave Kukoski and
Tane, and I just looked at it. Who was the other person? I can't remember.
Crap. God, I'm having a senior moment. I hate that so much.
I know, me too. I hate it, man. I think we're about the same age.
Yeah, I turned 60, and it's just a horrible thing. It'll come to me in a second. Anyway, Anyway, I've done some tours with Bob. I'd done some tours with Bob, and I've been playing with Tane kind of on and off over the years, and had wanted to do something with them for a while. And Kukoski and I had also done some gigs together, and we're starting to get to know each other. And so the main thrust of that recording was meant to be trio, but I added Dave for 3 or 4 tunes. So it goes back and forth. And on that record, we did some experiments, and these were, I was thinking about what it would feel like to play to have musicians play swing by themselves in different tempos. So the question was, if I had Bob playing Robert Hurst.
Robert Hurst, there we go. Yeah.
Bob
I started
Hurst,
to say that because I just looked at it a few minutes ago. I was having a senior moment myself.
Bob, if you ever hear this, I apologize.
Bob probably understands completely, I imagine.
Oh my God, it's such a bummer that. Anyway, I'd done some tours with Bob, and we knew each other, and I knew how it felt to play with him. And the question I asked myself was, what would it feel like if Bob was swinging, say, at this tempo, and Tane was swinging himself at this tempo, and the tempos are not related. It's not a subdivision, they're just 2 independent tempos. What would it feel like if I, as an improviser, could jump back and forth between the 2 of them? What would the music sound like? And what I imagined doing was going into the studio and counting Bob off and having him play a certain number of choruses of something at a tempo, and then okay, thank you, and then having Tane do that on a different track at a different tempo, and then playing them up next to each other in my headphones and having me go bounce back and forth. That's what I imagined doing. But as it turned out, at Tane's studio, the whole point of the way he set up his studio is that you play together in the room, and it's about creating the atmosphere of a live performance and that type of communication and capturing that on a recording. So we couldn't go in different booths or do it. I guess I could have figured out how to do it with the technology, but more importantly than that, what it presented me with was, what if I asked these guys to just do it? And so we were sitting at the dinner table, and I said, I got some tunes to play, guys, and we had sort of 2 days to rehearse and record. So we tended to sort of rehearse a tune for a little while and then record it and then move on to it. I said, how do you guys feel about, I've got like 4 of these experiments where we're going to be doing, or where we're going to have some different ways of setting people up to play in different tempos, and then either just stay like that or find a new tempo together. So I experimented with about 4 different iterations of that idea. And then we're like, let's try it.
Perfect.
They didn't have to think about it. It was so cool. And so we did. And I just think it's one of those records where if you know what we're doing, it helps It helps to help your ears sort of follow what's going on. There's one tune, the title track, where we start in one tempo, and then individually we move away from the original tempo and arrive at a new one towards the end of the track. But we don't go there all together at the same time. We go there one at a time. So we're playing together for a while, and then each of us is playing by himself but against the others in different tempos, and then eventually we wind up together. It's a really interesting phenomenon. And it worked. It really worked. But if you don't know that that's happening and you hear that music, you might think, wow, what the heck are these guys doing?
It makes me think of something that Ornette might have done, I mean, it sort of seems like, in a way. And but the way you're talking about it sounds more difficult.
that
tricky.
Is where it came from. The idea came from Lonely Woman. So in Lonely Woman, the horns are playing. The horns are playing in their own tempo space, and Billy Higgins and Charlie Hayden are playing in time, but not with the horns. They're playing in time with each other,
right?
But not with the horns.
Right.
So they're separate. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting if this is actually the seed of this entire recording happened when I was thinking about this idea. What if I told Tane, and I was imagining Tane, what if I told Tane to just play like he was in the practice room and had found something that he really loved and he was just feeling super inspired? Could you do that, Tane? And do that. And then me and Bob are going to be over here to the side, and we're going to be playing with the melody of Lonely Woman. And like I'll play a little bit of it, and then he can play a little of that, and then a little while later he'll play a little chunk of the melody, and I'll copy his way of playing it, kind of like we're teaching it to each other. Meanwhile, Tane is just swinging like crazy over here by himself.
Right.
And then eventually we're so drawn to what Tane is doing. It's so compelling that we have to just drop what we're doing and go play with him.
Yeah, you're right.
that was the first idea I had about playing in different tempos and playing with the tension that happens when people are doing two different things, and what would it feel like if we now go and put them together? Yeah. So I did some more traditional things on that record, and then there's these 4 experiments. I call them sculptures.
Yeah, beautiful.
And I think that record is really successful as an experimentation record. So it's not one you put on for your lover over a candlelight dinner.
Unless you have bad news for them.
Unless you're trying to start a fight. Oh boy. But I think it's good music, and I like the way that one came out. And then the other one that I often recommend is The Wishing Well, which is one of my first ones with a band that I had together for a long time with Billy Hart and Ray Drummond and Bruce Barth. I remember to say all their names correctly. And we had a band together for about 6 years, did a bunch of tours in Japan and a couple in the States and a couple in Europe. And that was the first record I recorded with that band. And the title track of that is a ballad called The Wishing Well. And I counted it off at one tempo, and Billy said, musically, with the music, he said, I'm actually feeling this over here. And he took us into a Shirley Horn style, very slow ballad. And it lasted, I think the whole thing is about 13 minutes. Wow. And you don't do that. You don't make a 13-minute ballad on a record. Certainly you don't do that in 1999.
Sure.
But it was so beautiful that I left it. I didn't edit it. Didn't take anything out. I just left it as we performed it. And Billy talked about that for a long time as one of his ballad performances on record that he was really happy with. Cool. Those are the 3 that I would recommend the most. But I can mostly say that I like the records I played on. Yeah, some of them. Actually, I was just talking about this with one of my students yesterday. What we were talking about was the thing in the studio between choosing between coming prepared with some stuff that you want to play versus really leaving it open and seeing what happens. And the approach is much more risky, because if you play something, if you're going for open-ended feeling, and you really are not going to decide what you're going to play in advance, you might not make, that's a risk. You might not play something good. It might not sound good, and now you have to live with that for the rest of your life.
Yeah. That's Charlie Rouse saying that on that Monk record, that Monk video. Yeah.
And I have, largely under Billy Hart's influence, I have devoted myself to that second way of really leaving it open, and not trying to play stuff that I've pre-prepared. And as a result, I was telling my student, there are some things out there where I'm like, yeah, that wasn't my best playing that day. If that's the first thing that somebody hears from me, that'd be kind of too bad, but oh well, you got to take the risks with the rewards,
Yeah, absolutely. Right. Absolutely. Yeah. I remember playing a duo gig with this bass player friend of mine, and she said, I was experimenting with something, like trying to play a little more freely. We're just playing tunes, but I was trying to play a little. And she said, when you start doing that, I don't know what to do. And I said, don't try to play something stop trying to play something that's good,
Yeah, right.
Don't try to play good, just play,
Yep. Yeah. Let's see what happens. Let's see what we can talk about together.
Yeah. Right.
And that reminds me of another really interesting moment I had with David Berkman. We were on a tour in the States. We were in one of those classroom environments where we were playing for some students. And somebody asked him a question, and he said, what's really interesting about playing together with the same guys and basically the same music every night? We would generally do a new repertoire of tunes for every tour that we did, but then we'd have that repertoire of tunes and we'd play that for the tour. And David was like, the thing that's really interesting about it is that now I really know how Tim plays.
Yeah,
and if Tim, I know his regular stuff. And the thing that's really interesting for me now, speaking as David, is when Tim plays something I've never heard him play before, my antenna go up and I'm like, oh, he's found something. And that makes me, the piano player, have to find a new way to accompany what he's doing. And so that I just thought that was a really interesting thing that he said about how getting to know each other is a really beautiful thing if the attitude is that we're still searching and trying to find new things.
Right.
Because we know each other so well, when somebody finds something new, you're like, oh, never heard him do that before. And everybody's everybody, there's a spark that happens.
Right.
And it was really nice for me to hear him say that out loud to a bunch of students. We had never had that discussion. It was prompted by a question from a student. And so that made me more committed to, hearing that out loud made me more committed to trying to really search when I play it and see if I can find something I haven't said before.
Yeah, that's very insightful. That's a very insightful comment,
Yeah,
so
Berkman,
that brings up a question, actually. You recorded this latest album before you went on the tour. So then you go on a tour and you play this music for however long you play it, every night with with the same band. So have you considered recording it after the tour, the same music again? I would like to hear the before and after, and hear how it developed,
Yeah, it's very interesting that you asked that question. On the road, after 6 or 8 days, Kenny Davis one night said, "Man, can you imagine if we'd recorded this music now?"
Yeah,
because we had found so many things. We were exploring the music every night. And my response to it was, it's an interesting thing, because you sometimes, if there's a couple of different ways to look at it. Sometimes when you go in the studio and you're playing it for the first time, that thing of everybody's antenna being up is happening, because you have to feel your way through the music. It's not familiar. And that antenna being up, feeling your way through the music, that is very fresh and magical.
Absolutely.
And so if you can capture that magic in that first performance, then you have something really good regardless. And the flip side of it is, if you're out on the road, and you're playing it and you're having this live magic night after night, and you go into the studio, sometimes the attitude is, we have to capture that live magic.
Right.
And you can't. You can't do it.
Exactly.
It's you can't do it. It's not the same.
Yeah.
If you get it just right, and you can go into the studio and play with the magic of that day, which is based on some good experiences of the past. You know, there's a good happy medium in there somewhere. But yeah, it's interesting that you asked, because we did discuss that very thing.
Yeah.
And in this era of, well, so here we are in the era of YouTube and Zoom,
right.
And so what I did do was take my little video camera with me every night.
That was my next question.
Yeah, I recorded everything, and I have in fact, the guy Matthew Heister, who helped me lay out the book, he was like my partner, in the sense that I would write a chapter and then I would send it to Matthew, and he would read through it. He's a guitarist, so he would read through it and ask me musical questions, help me clarify things, and then also look at the English and help clarify the English. And then he was the designer of the book. He laid it out. He's a multi-talented dude who also helped me do the videos that go with the book. And so I reached out to him the other day. I said, hey, I got all this video footage. Would you like to make a series of videos with me? And he said, of course, would love to. And so we will dole out some performances from the road over time. I haven't figured out exactly how to do that, but since you asked, it sparked the idea that one interesting thing might be to play, say, 4 versions of the Mayor's Council, one of my original tunes. Do 4 versions in chronological order from the tour. So you can see how it changes from night to night. That might be, or not, you know, depending on how creative we were.
Sign me up.
Yeah. So there's some different ways we can do that.
Yeah, I want to see that. In fact, I wanted to ask you, man. I want a video of that concert you did at the school. I mean, that might be. We'll talk about it off the thing, but I sure would love to see it.
We can make that happen.
And that one thing in particular, just because I love Jim's playing so much, when he played that intro on Infinize, I was just like, wow, like, where did that come from? You know, I mean, I can't wait to interview him and have this conversation with him actually too. You know, I mean, I was just, and so many things happened. I mean, just the way you guys play together. I mean, the cues, I mean, the subtle cues, and I mean, just, we don't get to see that here that often where I live, you know, on that level. So, so it was it was beautiful to see that. And of course, I mean, you guys all play so well together, and everybody's world class. And I mean, just seeing everybody play together and communicate with each other, and I'm just blown away, man. Still thinking about it.
Yeah,
so I'd love to see that. If you wanted to share it with me at some point, you know,
we can certainly do that. And that reminded me of that thing I touched on earlier. Of that was a really good example of asking Jim to play an introduction to Infinize. So rather than counting it in, which doesn't communicate anything about how I feel in that moment or what I would like to accomplish with that song, you know. Instead, I said, hey, Jim, would you like to play a little bit out front of Infinize? And then our performance of the song was a response to the vibe he set up at the top. So the whole thing flowed from the beauty of what he found, and I try to do that. It's pretty easy with ballads, and I was definitely counting off tunes more than I wanted to on this tour, just because I hadn't found a way to get somebody to do it himself, you know. But we did have Kenny would start the tune called Armacost. We would have him do that.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, that was great.
And then sometimes Jim would play something out front of a ballad. Sometimes I would, and I tried to compose ways of getting the music started that don't require me to say 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. You know?
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah. Oof. May he rest in peace, Wayne Shorter. Sorry we lost him this year.
Yeah. We just had Herbie. Herbie played here earlier this summer. And,
is that right?
It was during the week that we had a jazz camp at school, and so somebody donated money for all the students to go hear Herbie Hancock. Students and faculty. So, and I took my oldest son, Taji, that you asked me about. I took my oldest son with me, and we'd both been together to hear Herbie the last time he was here, like 10 years ago or something like that. And and you know what's interesting? I stood up after the concert. We were getting ready to leave, and I thought, man, that might be the best thing I've ever seen. And then I thought of, except when I saw Sam Rivers when I was like 19 or 20, you know, that blew my mind completely, you know. And the next day I asked my buddy who had been at the concert, I said, man, what did you think of that? He said, man, all I could think about was that was the best thing I've seen since Sam Rivers.
Really? Wow.
Yeah, my buddy said the same thing, you know.
Oh, amazing.
So, but Herbie, same thing with Herbie. He just sounded better than ever, which is amazing. He's 83. He sounded better than the last time I heard him, you know. It was amazing.
Just want to be like that. That's how I want to be.
Yeah. Yep. I know. Exactly.
I want to play until that point in my life. I'd like to live that long, and I'd like to still be creative at that stage.
Exactly.
Yeah. Herbie blew my mind. He's blown it on any number of occasions, but I think if I have to choose so I'll say three. The first one was hearing Benny Goodman. The second one was a Herbie septet performance at the Blue Note, and I remember I was at the Vanguard and I ran into Billy Hart in the street. He was on his way from the Blue Note to the Vanguard. I was on my way from the Vanguard to the Blue Note. Okay. We ran into each other on the street, and I said to him, "Yeah, it's pretty happening over at the Vanguard. You're going to enjoy it." Yeah. And he had a kind of a special look in his eyes, and he said, "Oh man, what they're doing at the Blue Note is going to mess you up." And I went in there, and they played One Finger Snap, and it was Ira Coleman and another name on blank, but I'll get it. Terry Lynn Carrington was playing.
Oh yeah.
And the rhythm section, played must have been 8 or 10 choruses where you couldn't tell where one was. The music was completely floating all over the bar lines, and I couldn't. It was apparent that they were traveling through the song together, but it was not apparent if the pulse was steady underneath it or not. You couldn't tell.
Right. Exactly.
And they floated and floated and floated. And then I don't know what the cue was, but when they went to play in time together, I screamed. I was like, oh my God.
Yeah.
It was the most dramatic thing I had ever heard, and it completely blew my mind wide open. Yeah. I had never heard something so powerful done before. That was the other one. And the third for me, unforgettable moment was Sonny. I'd seen him a handful of times, Sonny Rollins. He played at the Beacon, at the, what's the ballroom on the Upper West Side called? Beacon Theater, yeah. He was at the Beacon Theater, and big stage, and he did a whole lot of stuff with a whole lot of different people. Jim Hall was there, and a whole bunch of things. And then for the second half, he just had Roy Haynes and Christian McBride came out and played trio, and they started with Sonny Moon for two, and he played a beautiful blues solo, classic Sonny Rollins, just exploring humor, everything you expect from Sonny. Sounded fantastic. And then Ornette Coleman stepped out from the wing.
Oh no!
And walked on stage and played a solo over, with the same song and the same rhythm section that Sonny just been played on.
Wow. Which
was incredible. And then Sonny, inspired by that, came back and played another solo.
Wow. Wow.
And that solo that Sonny played after Ornette was one of the baddest things I've ever heard in my life.
Wow. I can imagine.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, those are my three sort of key moments.
Beautiful, man. I got to hear Sonny once when I was in my early 20s. They had a series, 3-night concerts. One was Sonny, one was Sun Ra Orchestra, and one was George Adams Quintet with Don Polo.
Oh yeah.
And I was there all 3 nights for that. Yeah. God almighty, man. Sonny came out on stage and just played solo for 15 minutes before the band even came out. And I was just in awe. I was just like, wow, I never heard anything that powerful in my life, And then Sun Ra's band, they came out one at a time from the wings playing free until the whole band was sitting there all playing free. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, it's like, boom, they're playing like this 1930s swing band song. I mean, just like I couldn't even see the cue. It was just like all of a sudden, like boom, here we go, And then they were walking through the aisle the whole bit, the Sun Ra the whole bit,
Yeah.
I was fortunate. I got to play with one of Sun Ra's drummers in a quintet for a couple of years, and his name was Samurai Celestial, and we made a couple of CDs together. Yeah, and
Space is the place.
Space is the place, man.
Yeah.
So, well, man, this has been just great. I could sit here and talk to you all day, and I'd like to do that. But is there anything else you'd like to bring up? I don't know that I have anything specific to ask you more, but although I want to talk to you more about music, anything you
Yeah,
want to
it's
say to
been
the
a
students? Anything you want to say to the kids? I'm a teacher. I know you're a teacher.
yeah.
Anything you want to say
It's
to
been
the young students?
a really fun freewheeling conversation. I've
Yeah, it's
really
been
enjoyed
great.
just
Yeah,
kind of seeing where it goes in the same
yeah,
way we play
absolutely.
music, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
No, the main thing to say to the kids is the the miracle of swing is out there.
That's
You
a
know,
beautiful thing to say, man.
it,
That's a
it's
beautiful way to say it, you know.
if you get a chance to play with somebody who's devoted his life to swinging, try to jump up on there with them and see if you can feel what that feels like. That's
Yeah.
the thing, because a lot of the students now, like the generation of musicians that I came to New York to play with people like Tom Harrell and Billy Hart and Teddy Barron. That was the reason I came here, was to get on the stand and feel what the music feels like in their hands. And there aren't that many of the guys of that level of experience left anymore. So
Exactly.
So yeah, I would say if you can get a chance. And now there's another generation coming up. Rudy Royston
Rudy's amazing, man.
is a great example of a drummer who can do all of the contemporary things, but he can also just sit back and let the music tip. That feeling of that beautiful tip where you don't have to do anything. The music, you can just let it be beautiful.
Exactly, right, exactly.
That kind of aesthetic
Yeah.
is a very, very special thing that our culture has given to the world. And that's what I would say to kids is if you hear somebody who's swinging in that traditional way and you get a chance to get up and feel it, absolutely don't miss that opportunity. That's something that's one of those feelings in life that once you've had it once, you're going to have to try to get it again.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, once again, it's been my pleasure to have as my guest today, Mr. Tim Armacost. I recommend you go to his website and check out some of his recordings and his book, and just check it out. He's a great musician. It's been a real pleasure having you here today and talking about this. And I look forward to many more conversations, I hope, like this. So
likewise, Keith, thanks for initiating it and getting us started, and let's keep this conversation going.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks for checking out Notes on Jazz. If you want to communicate with me, I offer free consultations. Just check the podcast notes for a link. You can also find a link to my website for CDs, downloads, and videos. See you next time at Notes on Jazz.